Well,
Hey,
okay.
Jesse.
Whatever weird computer voice telling me it's being recorded. Cool.
Gotta let you know.
I guess. Oh man, look at your record setup.
Like that?
I do. I got the player over here, and then I got all the records over there. But
There you go.
I like yours all in one spot.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a cheap record player. It just looks good because it's white.
Yeah, that's all. Whatever. As long as the speakers are half decent. I have the one that's like an upgrade from the. It's like 2 levels above what they sell at Urban Outfitters, but it's
Okay.
it's not great either.
But it plays, right?
This room ain't that big. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't need a whole thing.
Right on, man. Well, thank you so much for doing this.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So this podcast is about your journey in music and how you got to where you are now.
Oh boy. Ugh.
How you got the 10 million streams plaque behind you.
Well, we had that ordered, special made. We paid for that. That's how we got that. That's like that Dimitri Martin joke, that comedian where he's like, when I was a kid, I used to try and be good at stuff, and then I realized you could just buy trophies. Same thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool, man. So are you from Philly originally?
Yeah, the suburbs.
Okay, tell me about that.
I mean, Philly as a city was always pretty cool, but I definitely spent way more time just in the suburbs hanging out. I always kind of wanted to be a city kid. So for me, Philly was like, once I got into high school, I was basically just like spending as much time as I could with friends in New York and listening to music all the time and playing guitar like 7 hours a day. So it's funny because people are like, so tell us about like your favorite spots in Philly. And I'm like, I don't have any, but I have a bunch of favorite places in New York, you know?
Right.
But my Philadelphia roots extend to like my like snarky attitude, my love of most of the sports teams, and just basically thinking that I'm better than everybody. No, I don't know.
That's awesome.
But it was all, I mean, like growing up in a house where music was like very important. Like my whole family's very musical. So like there were always guitars everywhere, and my dad's record collection was amazing. And, you know, we always had like instruments around, and it was a great, I say negative things about growing up in the suburbs of Philly. And the reality was it was a good environment to throw myself into being a songwriter, which is all I wanted to do starting from when I was a teenager.
Oh, wow. Okay. You said your family's musical. Is that how you got into music originally?
Totally, yeah. So my dad is a like shredding electric Clapton guitar player / now he's retired, mostly retired, but he has like a swing show where he does like Sinatra and Bobby Darin songs.
Really? That's rad.
So I really grew up on like classic rock, Beatles, Stones, Hendrix, Cream, Joni Mitchell, James Taylor, and then the Great American Songbook also. So I feel like I have like both of those influences in me all the time.
Sure.
And then he was a band leader, so he played like weddings and parties around Philly, and his dad, my grandfather, did the same thing, and their big claim to fame was in 1980 they played at the White House for Ronald Reagan's 70th birthday party.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, remember when like doing stuff at the White House wasn't like shameful?
Yeah, that's amazing that they got to play there. Wow.
Yeah, so I wasn't there, obviously I wasn't born
Right.
yet, but there's like a picture in my dad's house of them together being there. My dad met Frank Sinatra that night, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. So he was in a band then, obviously. Your dad was?
Yeah, I mean, starting from when he was a kid, and then once he got older and became a professional, he had his own. He actually had like 3 or 4 bands under him, and then he had like his main group that he played with. So I didn't start playing guitar until high school, and I took piano lessons, but I always hated it, and I wasn't very good at piano. I say with a piano behind me.
Right.
And like my
whole songs having piano in it.
My whole apartment is like arranged for this, and meanwhile I'm like way better at guitar than piano. But I remember just like sitting there listening to the band rehearse and being like, I want to be a part of this. How do I be a part of this? But I couldn't play anything yet, so I was like excruciating, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I just always thought it was the coolest thing.
So you'd go to your dad's shows and stuff?
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. Did you get to like roadie?
Yeah,
for
I
him?
mean, that was my job in high school. It was like when he would play all these like it wasn't like bar gigs. It was always like classy Christmas parties and big fancy weddings. So
Mhm.
for my job in high school was I'd help him set up and load up the car and then go to the gig, set it up, and then at the end and then just like hang out for 4 hours and do nothing and then break down all the gear, drive home. Uh, and he was only paying me like $50 a night. I don't know why I took it, but it was better than, you know, some terrible, I don't know, working at like an ice cream shack or
Right,
something, you
exactly.
know?
I'm sure there's worse places to be. That's cool. So guitar, I mean, piano, you said was the first instrument, then guitar.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously around music a lot. When did you start writing your own songs?
So I waited a pretty long time for guitar because my dad was a guitar player. I was like, I don't want to compete with that. That's his thing. And then I was like, I was like 16 when I was like, this is just getting crazy. This is something I want to be doing. And the whole idea was like, we'll get you a cheap acoustic and you'll learn the basics, and then we'll switch you to a Strat and you'll learn to shred. And I and I remember like, I mean, it was like one of those like crazy life-changing moments where I like sat down with this little $90 Ibanez and I was like, oh no, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, you know?
Mhm.
And like immediately that I started writing songs that day. It took me years until I actually bought my first electric guitar. I was always just like very in the acoustic songwritery world. So guitar playing and songwriting sort of went like hand in hand.
Mhm.
And then when it came time for college, the only college I applied to was Berkeley in Boston. And I have a songwriting degree, which is
Amazing.
very expensive and unnecessary piece of paper. But I was I was very fortunate that my parents were supportive enough to let me do that, and I got a lot better there. I was not ready to be a professional when I left for college, and I'd only been playing a year, and I was thrown to classes with kids that have been playing for 15 years, and I was a mess, and I just practiced a lot and wrote as many songs as I could, and yeah, made a ton of progress.
Wow. So in high school is when you started writing songs. Did you play in a
Yeah.
band or was it all just singer
No,
songwriter?
the bands that were happening in my hometown were like pop punk bands,
Okay.
and that was just so not me, and my voice isn't very high. It just like didn't suit me. So I had friends that were in all these bands, but I was always like off doing my own thing my junior and
Sure.
senior year, you know?
Doing like, were you playing like coffee shops or doing like open mic nights?
Oh yeah, all of that. There was like a new coffee shop that opened pretty close to my house that had my first gig there. And then my first like real show was at the end of my freshman year of college.
Oh, wow.
But that was kind of like gave me false expectations because when it's your first show, I'm sure you remember, everyone in my life came.
Right.
Everyone I went to high school with, every friend I'd ever had, all my parents and family. So I like sold it out. My first show was like huge, and I made like $400 or something.
Wow.
And I remember being like, oh, I literally had the thought like, oh, this is gonna be easy. Right? Like this is I thought this was gonna be hard. This will be great. And then
Yeah.
like the next show, like half the number of people came, and then the next show, half those people came. And then
Right.
it took me years to like build back up to that original number, you know.
Right.
But
Right.
that first show, that was like the greatest night of my life. I was like, oh, I'm gonna be huge. This is gonna be really simple. Like, why are people telling me this is hard? Like, this is great, you know?
Yeah. Was that the
Oh,
show after your freshman year of college?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I want to go back to the very first one. You said the
Oh,
show
jeez.
did you just do covers or was that original material?
I actually like I do more covers now than I did back then. I had this like weird thing about like if I learn how to play other people's songs, then I'll rip them off or something. I think mostly I was just lazy.
A
But
lot of I've actually talked to a lot of artists that say the same thing. They're like, "Why would I waste my time learning all these other people's songs?
yeah,
It screws me up
but
writing my
that
own songs."
that ended up being totally wrong because now that we're in quarantine and I have all this free time, one of the things that I started doing, like a lot of people was doing like live streams, and so for like the first 3 or 4 months, I was doing like a different theme every week, and
Yeah,
that's
I saw some of those.
so it would be like the theme would be like animals or the color blue, and so I'd have to learn like 6 or 7 songs every week about the different theme. And that was really besides college, that was the first time I really did that. And it's like, so like you learn so much playing through the Beatles catalog, and like I think it's invaluable, and I wish that I'd done it earlier. But yeah, so in high school I was just like all originals. I'm sure they were all terrible. Who even knows what I was playing? My voice was like way higher. I didn't know how to sing yet, so I would do this thing where I would be like really, because John Mayer had just come out, so I was doing the really breathy thing, and I'd get lightheaded after like 5 minutes, and I was like just I'm glad that like there weren't really cell phones yet. There's no footage of that stuff.
Right.
That's a positive thing, I think.
Yeah. Can you imagine the kids that are like 12, 13 right now, what their lives are gonna look like?
Even like my first record came out in 2008, and I always swore like I'm not gonna hate my first record, and I don't. I'm proud of it in some ways, but like when people bring it up, it's like most people, their like late teenage choices, creative choices that they make, don't exist anymore. But mine is available forever on the internet.
Yours
it's like
living there.
Oh my god. So yeah, I mean, in some ways it's like, okay, let's just keep it moving. So yeah, those like really early shows, those early songs, I don't even know if I have like voice memos of them. Voice memos weren't even a thing yet.
Yeah, they probably weren't a thing in 2008 or whatever.
Crazy.
That's interesting. You went to Berkeley.
Yeah.
I know you have to do quite a extensive like interviewing process to get in there, and
yeah,
it's very difficult from what I've gathered.
So
what was your like intro to it?
Yeah, so there was like a couple years that I fell into where you didn't have to audition to get in.
Oh, okay.
I did audition. They were like accepting a ton of students, and then there was like a 50% freshman dropout rate. So
because people would get in and realize that they aren't good and be like, oh,
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, but then they got all their money, right? Their freshman year money. So so by the time I left, it was way harder to get in than when I was a freshman, which was great because I wouldn't have gotten in. Like I just hadn't been playing long enough, So you have to pick a principal instrument. A lot of songwriters would do voice. I did guitar. So I had the same guitar instruction and the same guitar rudiments that like people that had been playing their whole lives. So it was like everyone, and then like I was down here being like what we'd have to trade guitar solos, and people are shredding, and I'd be like, just, just a bad situation. But it was really motivating to be around creative people like that all the time, and learning so much all the time, and like being like slightly competitive with friends that were doing awesome stuff and were way ahead of me. And the longer I was there and the further into the songwriting curriculum I got versus the regular guitar, voice, piano, traditional music stuff, I definitely like found my place and became more comfortable and started to develop a voice and all that kind of stuff. But it was challenging though. It was definitely like my freshman year, especially, like really stressful, panic attacks. What am I doing here? I don't belong here. These kids are so good. And a lot of them were. And I've always been competitive and to a fault, comparing myself to other people. And at a place like that, when you're just starting out, nobody in my hometown went to music school. So like there was very few people for me to compare myself to. And then all of a sudden you're there with the best musician from every high school in America is now all in the same mile radius in Boston. So it was tough, but again, like my family was really supportive. And at the time I was like so new into my creativity. Every song was better than anything else I'd written. And I'd write something and be like, that's the best thing I'll ever write in my life. And then I'd write another one and be like, that's the best thing I had so far to go. And I didn't realize that until I was in it,
Sure. Was it more intimidating playing like shows around Berkeley area than if you play just because you're kind of surrounded by the best of the best?
Yeah, and also because like everyone is playing shows all the time, and there's a lot of like, oh really, you did that, versus like playing for normal people who don't have you could play the same chord for an hour for normal, and they'll have no idea. But then you have the kids that are like, oh, really? A minor 7 flat 5 there? Is that really what you wanted to do? Like that kind of stuff.
Just like nerding out super.
Yeah. And I definitely can get into that. Like I love harmonic theory, and I really nerd out on cool chords and stuff. But for me, it's definitely more about like, how am I feeling about this versus like, I'm going to make this as complicated as I can.
Sure. Yeah, I was
but
wondering that.
There's definitely some of that, like, oh, I saw your show, like, yeah, that was pretty cool, I guess. Like, okay, all right, everybody.
Right. I always find that interesting because you are surrounded by people that can just hear what you're playing and be like, oh, that's this progression.
Yeah. Whereas, it's not real life. In the same way that, like, I was just talking about this with a buddy of mine. The kids, like the songwriters, because every major was like pretty separate. So I knew a lot of the people in the songwriting program, but I didn't know a ton of the jazz players or the producers or all that stuff. But the kids that were like superstars in the songwriting program at school, that all the teachers loved, that were getting all the showcases, they weren't necessarily like killing it outside of school. Mm-hmm. So to me, it was always way more important to be traveling and playing real shows to real people around and outside of Boston and up and down the East Coast than it was to like try and get like noticed by some of the faculty,
Right. So they would set up showcases and stuff for you guys.
There were like 2 songwriter showcases a year that were always like very prestigious, and I didn't get in until my senior year, which was how it's supposed to be. I wasn't good enough, until I graduated. But there were those kids that got in early and were doing those showcases, and it meant nothing. In the real world, it meant nothing, but at the time it was so important.
Right. Did you have to do like a senior, like, because I've talked to somebody, I don't know if they're in the songwriting area or field of Berkeley, but like their last like final project was that you had to play like a showcase show to like A&R people, and like there was
I didn't have any A&R people at mine.
Oh yeah, they were saying that there was like legit people in the crowd, and they met a manager that way, and like, so I didn't know if you had like that experience.
I didn't have that. I definitely had to play like a showcase of songs that were all different, that had a different theme, that was basically like presenting a concept album kind of a thing.
Right.
But there were definitely no A&R people or managers there.
Okay.
If there were, I did not do a good enough job to get any of their attention.
Yeah, because he was saying, I forgot who told me this, but they were like, yeah, we did the show, and it was like, it wasn't even at the school. It was at some hall, and they brought all these people, and you got to do like 3 originals or whatever, and that was just the end of it.
There were definitely like, you would hear like that people were like, labels would set up showcases and have, or like The Voice would come and try and get a bunch, or American Idol would try and like pull people like singers out every year. I never got invited to do any of those. I was doing my own thing.
Out much.
Totally. Totally. But yeah, I mean, that stuff was definitely around, and like some of my friends left to join bands or start bands or, all that kind of stuff. But I stayed all 4 years and graduated in 2008 because I am very old, children at home.
I graduated in 2007. So
yeah, there we go. We are very old.
We are very old. That's awesome. Okay, so you graduate. Oh wait, that's the same year you put out your debut record.
Yeah.
Was that just self-recorded, self-released?
Yeah, I made it down in Atlanta with a guy named Clay Cook, who I knew of because he collaborated with a bunch of early John Mayer songs. Mm-hmm. And actually now he's in Zac Brown Band, the Zac Brown Band, and has like won a ton of Grammys and has played. I mean, he's like the most talented human being alive. But I was like 19, so intimidated, so terrified. Actually, this was like way before Kickstarter, and my high school friends asked me for my Facebook login, and then without telling me, messaged all of my Facebook friends and accepted donations. I think this was like before PayPal, but anyway, on my 21st birthday, my best high school friends presented me with like a 6-foot check for like $2,500.
Wow.
And they were like, for your birthday, we raised money for you to make your first album. And that was like where most of the money came from for my first album, was from was
That's
from those
awesome.
donations. Yeah, it was like way ahead of its time. It was like a full decade before Kickstarter even existed.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It was really special. I had that thing rolled up in my bedroom for years. I feel like we just got rid of it recently. But so yeah, so I made this record, and then I got a couple like really lucky breaks. I got a song of mine called Advice, ended up being like on a really popular Pandora station and was getting like millions of hits. This was also when Sirius and XM were split, and
Right.
somebody sent the album to like both places, and all of a sudden like 4 or 5 of my songs were being played on these like satellite radio stations.
That's huge.
It was nuts. And like my hometown station called WXPN in Philly, they were really supportive of it. And so again, like not knowing any better, I was like, oh, this is all easy. You just like make an album and then tons of people hear it. You know, it was like very, and then, you know, somebody sent it to somebody else. Like that's how I got my first manager. That manager sent it to BMG, the CEO of BMG. So then I ended up signing with BMG when I was really young. And then I sort of got a reality check of how the music industry works, and it wasn't all like sunshine and rainbows. But when I was first starting out, it was a crazy time. It was really exciting. Everything was new. I wasn't jaded yet. It was just, I was like young. I was driving around the country in my friend's car. We slept in like parking lots and friends of friends' houses, and you know, all that kind of stuff. Just exactly what you should be doing when you're that age and trying to make it, you know?
Yeah. So right right when you finished that record out of college, that you toured with just a friend of yours?
Yeah, it was like a couple different friends. Like my roommate from college wasn't doing anything for a couple weeks, so I'd like throw him in the car, and just like touring with friends, setting up shows, sending a ton of emails, all this, you know, all very similar stuff to like what I still do in the before times. Now is who knows what's happening now.
Sure.
But yeah, like it was my goal then was the same as it is now, which was like, I want to reach as many people as I can. How do I play as many shows as I can to as many people? How do I meet these people? Like, how do I get songs on the radio, and how do I get people to hear about it? And MySpace was still a thing, you know, just like, it's just a different time. Time, you know? But it was also like, there were so many great singer-songwriters happening besides like John Mayer and Jason Mraz. I feel like I'm just going to keep talking about John Mayer, even though there were like lots of others. I was like
the same school as you.
Yeah, that's true. But like Ben Folds was killing it at that time. Like I was way into Elliott Smith. I was like heavy into Nick Drake. There were all these like New York singer-songwriters happening. It was just a cool time to be a white dude with a guitar, you know. It was like it was exciting.
Yeah. And the next record you put out was 2010?
Yeah, so I got some money from BMG as an advance, and went down to Virginia, recorded with this producer named Chris Coit, who had worked on a bunch of records that I really liked, and spent 2 weeks in the middle of nowhere in Virginia. We had like a crazy blizzard. We were totally snowed in. It was a beautiful experience. We were staying up all night, doing 800 vocal takes, being hungover the next morning, realizing everything we recorded was terrible, starting all over again. You know, but it was like, yeah, that was like my first full-length record, 13 songs, fully produced, and had a lot of like, there was pop and singer-songwriter and acoustic stuff, but then also there's like my version of like a jazz standard closes the album, and it was just like, at the time, was just a really great statement as an artist, I thought. I'm very proud of that album.
And you said BMG helped fund it.
Yeah,
So how did that relationship form?
That was through my manager at the time, knew one of the A&R people, and it was a thing where, one of those crazy stories. They sent my first record to the CEO of BMG in Germany, and he listened to it and he liked it, and then he was like, "Oh, this is okay." And then he went to listen to it again, and he couldn't find it, and it was because his 12-year-old son had taken it and was listening to it in his room.
Oh.
Yeah, and then his son was like, this dude's awesome. You need to sign him. And again, these were like things that were happening to me back then.
That's
so this German dude flies to New York, I'm sure for other reasons than to meet with me, but that was part of it. And he bought me a big expensive steak and was like, whatever you need, we'll support you. And it was awesome. And I signed with them, and it was really exciting. And then immediately after that, my relationship with my manager fell apart, and without having a point person at BMG, they were buying a bunch of different companies and other publishing companies. And I had like many conversations with them where they were like, Jesse, we think you're great, but we're really focused on My Humps by the Black Eyed Peas right now.
Right, I mean? Of course.
Like literally. And I was like, okay, I get it, guys. You know, so it was just a different experience. So that lasted a couple of years and ended back in like 2013, I think, something like that.
And then you're not with BMG anymore?
Mm-mm.
No, okay. Are you signed to a record label now?
No, I was with, I signed with Universal just out of Asia for my last EP, which was a whole other thing. But for this record, I just put out a single on Friday, obviously. Yeah. And that currently very independent.
Sure. Sweet. Yeah. Oh, that's cool. So then, okay, so you get signed to BMG, you put this record out, and then did they put you on tour at that point? Was that when stuff started kind of getting weird?
That's definitely when stuff started getting weird. A bunch of people at the company changed. I was also I was such an arrogant, like I used to go into meetings and be like, God, I would just say such embarrassing things like I'm the best songwriter ever, whatever I said, you know, like with no credibility, no success. And I definitely turned people off from working with me. And it was a lesson that I really had to learn the hard way, where like years later, I had to apologize to people because I was super unprofessional and arrogant. And there were people that probably wanted to help me, and I screwed it up 100%. And it was a situation where like it could have been awesome, and ultimately like very little happened because there weren't people there that wanted to champion this album. Part of that was because I just didn't know them and then very well, and then part of it was when I did know them, I was anxious and stressed, and I would say the wrong things and make a fool of myself. And yeah, it was just being young and thinking you know better, and I definitely did not, you know.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it happens, you know. You're in a situation where now you're around all these people that, you know, work with these massive stars all the time. And
it's like to me, because I've always been a solo artist, I've never really had a band. So like music, so much of my career is alone. Writing, traveling, performing, being creative, so much of it is alone or one-on-one or small groups. So to all of a sudden be like in these offices with the plaques on the wall and all it was very intimidating. It still is sometimes, you know, because sometimes I feel like I'm operating with and separate from the industry, whatever that means. And it's just finding my place in it and trying to reach an audience. And for me, it's like all about actual people. Reaching real people, making a meaningful connection with real people, all that kind of stuff. That to me is really important.
And okay, so from that record that you put on BMG.
Yeah. Oh, I love this. We're doing a whole deep dive. This is great.
Is that cool?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. That's usually how we go.
I love it.
Because I want to hear like, the progression here. So then you put out Thoughts I've Never Had Before, 1 and 2. Yeah. Is that released together, or was it separate?
They were released like 6 months apart, and the reason I did that was because I was always against the idea. I always wanted to release albums, you know, which of course now is hilarious. Like, who puts out full albums? Like, I mean, I'm going to, but like also who does that? But I was like, I'll just put out a couple acoustic EPs because it's something different, because it's uncomfortable. It's not as shiny and shimmery. So it was really like, I mean, if you put the two of them together, it's basically an album. And I basically recorded an album in one day. I got one studio day, hired my friend who's like an amazing producer, and we spent 12 hours with me playing songs over and over and over again. And that the result was the 2 EPs, Thoughts I've Never Had Before, Part 1 and 2.
Wow.
And it was that, for me, those songs were really special in that some of them, my first couple records were very much like I, me. And that was the first time where I remember thinking, I want to tell other people's stories. I want to have a different perspective. It was also, you know, I had like many young people, I had like a really bad breakup, and I wrote a bunch of songs about an ex. And I remember I used to like go on stage and I would just like talk badly about this person. And I remember coming home after a show and being like, the people at that show gained nothing. All I did was convince them that my ex-girlfriend sucked. Right? That like they like took time out of their lives, paid money, drove in their cars, and all I did was convince them that my ex was a bad person, right? So, which is okay. So for the first time, it was like, okay, if I'm actually going to be on stage and I'm actually going to be writing these songs and I'm going to be singing to an audience, what are the things that I want to be writing about? How can I actually be intentional in, these are the themes I want to be exploring, these are the things I want to be saying? And so those EPs were great because it allowed me to expand the scope of what I was writing about instead of just writing about relationships and dating, because that is a great topic and there is an infinite well of material, but there are so many other things to say. So that was really when I started trying to do a little more political stuff and telling stories from other people's perspectives. And there's a song in there called Carry On, which I wrote because I was playing a show on the 10th anniversary of 9/11, and I wanted to, how do I write a song about that? And then there's a song called We Can, which ended up doing very well for me, which was, I ran the New York City Marathon in 2010 to raise money for spinal cord injury research because one of my best friends is in a wheelchair.
Wow.
And I wanted to write a song that inspired people to do crazy, scary things, because I would tell my experience of doing that, and I would get people coming up to me at shows like, man, that's so crazy that you did that. Like, I've always wanted to do that. I've always wanted to, you know, I've been a dentist my whole life. I've always wanted to play the trumpet. I'm a second grade teacher. I always wanted to play the piano. I should have moved to Florida when I was 23. I wish I had taken these lessons. I want to learn this language. I want to go to this place. And I was like, man, all these people are carrying around all of these things that they're just like squishing down all the time. And especially the older they get, the harder it is, because work and life and taxes and bills and sickness and stress and all of the things. So I wanted to write a song that was like, I get it. I get all of it. And life is short, right? And so that was We Can. And that song has been really, really special for me. I've done the marathon like almost every year. It's like a big part of what I do now. And there's a program based on that song that happened really beautifully called the We Can Project.
I did see that a little bit. I want to hear about it.
So that was a thing where I got the Coffee House channel on Sirius XM played it like crazy. And I got an email from a teacher in Vancouver Island, Canada. And she was basically like, we're playing this song for our students. We really love it. We'd love for you to come visit. And I was like, yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not doing anything. So I took 3 planes. The last one was like the size of a skateboard. It was like 6 people. And we landed in this tiny airport on the other side of the continent. I mean, it's an island off the coast of Vancouver. It's as far away as you can be and be in North America. And I landed on this tiny plane, and I get out at this tiny airport, and there's like 400 kids there with their parents.
Wow.
Like the craziest thing, with signs and posters, and because they really loved this song. And then we made the music video there. So the music video is me at this school called Puntledge Park, and it's a half French immersion school. So all these kids have signs and stuff, and half of them are in English and half of them are in French. And they were using this song to inspire their students. And I had such an amazing time, and I came back and I was like, that was cool. I'm excited that happened, right? And then I got emails from other teachers. What is this thing that you're doing? And we saw this video, and we would love for you to do that here. And again, I was like, it's not really anything. I'm just a singer songwriter. I don't really do education, but like I'll come, you know. And I got enough of those inquiries where I was like, okay, maybe there's something missing in education that this can really fill. Mm-hmm. And so I started working with people I know in the nonprofit world and in the education world, and we created the We Can Project, which is basically a service learning program and a growth mindset program. So the song itself, the first verse is I can, the second verse is you can, the third verse is we can. So there's an I can portion where people come up with goals and things they've always wanted to do. And for a lot of young people, it's the first time anyone's ever asked them that. Mm-hmm. And then there's also a we can portion where there's a big community project, and it's a great way for a school or a community to come together and focus on one thing. Mm-hmm. And I've worked with about 500,000 students in the last 5 years. And some of the stuff that I've seen is so incredible and so moving and so wonderful, where you have, and the thing about it that's really been special is I've worked with rich kids on the Upper West Side. I've worked with poor kids in Brooklyn. I've gone to the second poorest county in the country in West Monroe, Louisiana. I've gone to the middle of nowhere, Virginia. I've gone to 38 different states, Catholic schools, Jewish schools, after-school programs, churches. No matter what, the message always works. The message is always effective because everyone's the same. They just want to know, they just want to figure out what's important. They want to know that their school supports them. And it's just like an amazing part of my job that I love so much. And that's been one of the hardest things about being home is not getting to visit schools.
Yeah, because so you've been you carry on and do this since it started. You make time.
Oh yeah, I mean at first I was really hesitant about it because it's not sexy, right? Like it's not like no one on the cover of Spin magazine is going and playing for fourth graders, right? But
you never
for
know.
me it's like it's such a win across the board. Like when I show up, no one is like, when I show up at a school, no one's asking me like, well, how many Instagram followers do you have? And what's your engagement like?
Right.
Like I am psyched to be there. The students are excited I'm there. The parents are excited I'm there. The teachers are excited I'm there. Everyone is excited about what's happening. Everyone, when I leave, everyone is happy that it happened. Like it's just such a win across the board. And there are a lot of educators that feel like, especially now, I mean, teachers are absolute angels right now with what they're dealing with. But
oh my gosh, yeah.
There are a lot of teachers who really feel like it's their responsibility to show a deep interest in their students and to support them to be complete human beings and to teach them that it feels good to give back to your community and to people that are less fortunate, and not to complain about things, but to actively come up with a solution and work as a team and share your progress and celebrate your wins and try something. A big part of the program is also, besides just doing community work, is I really wanted to give young people permission to do new things, because that was something that I didn't have when I was a kid because I was so scared of failing. And so I really wanted, like, if you want to learn an instrument, learn an instrument. If you want to write a novel, write a novel. If you want to learn a language or read a book or play a sport, do it. And if you fail at it, that's okay. But trying new things, especially when you're young, is so important. And that's been really special. And I've been doing it long enough now that there are kids like from the first schools I went to who are now like putting out albums or starting bands or like that kind of stuff, which again makes me feel old, but is so cool. You know?
That is really cool.
To go and play for a 12-year-old and then have her first album come out at 18 is amazing. To have a community garden that a bunch of fourth graders started in 2014 that's still going now is amazing. You know, like that kind of stuff. It's just a really special way to be a part of these communities.
When did you start the project?
Officially, probably 2013, 2014. Okay.
So pretty quickly after that record came, because I'm looking, the record came out in 2012.
Yeah. So it was definitely like, it was just like a thing that I was doing, and then it became much more official within like probably 18 to 24 months after that.
Wow.
And then right as that was picking up and I was gearing up to make another record, my life came to a screeching halt.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So what happened there?
So then at the end of 2013, I got very, very sick. And it took me a long time to figure out what was wrong, and then we finally found out that it was Lyme disease.
Oh
and
my
so
gosh.
for all of 2014 and most of the second half of 13, all of 2014 and most of 2015, I stopped playing shows, I stopped touring, I stopped answering emails, and because I was just getting worse and worse and worse, and I was basically at the doctor almost every day for like 3 years.
Oh my God, that's horrible.
So like that you and I are having this conversation right now is a miracle.
Yeah.
Because I have met so many people who are still sick and are suffering, and that's a big part of what I do now too. So I used to run the New York Marathon for spinal cord injury research, and now I run every year for Lyme disease research.
Oh, cool.
I'm on the board of an organization called Generation Lyme, and we do meetups and support groups and community for young people with Lyme disease. I talk about Lyme disease at every show. It's because there are so many people that haven't and don't know. The medical community is so behind on it. Like, I remember, like, I went to like a high school in Philly, and one of the teachers asked me, like, I know you've had some history with this, and we have a student who's really hasn't been feeling well for a long time. And I talked to her, and then while I was talking to her, one of her friends was like, oh, I have some of that too. And then during the class, there were 40 high school kids. And I said, how many of you are like chronically fatigued or headachy, nausea? And like half of them put their hands up.
Wow.
And I was like, how many of your parents don't believe you? And they all kept their hands up. Like, we have this major, major, major problem that I had to go to 16 doctors. And
they figured it out? And
I'm a straight white male, right?
Right.
Like, I should, people are supposed to believe whatever I say, right? And so that, like, and I've spoken to hundreds and hundreds of people who have had such bad experiences with the medical community, just being disregarded. I mean, when you have someone who's been suffering a long time, the worst thing you can say to them is you're lying.
Right, exactly.
You know? And that happens so often. We hear about it every day, and it's really sad. So for me, like, talking about my experience and sharing about it, and then afterwards writing about it became a big part of my life, you know?
How did you ever find out, like, how it happened? Like, isn't it through like a tick or something usually?
Yeah, I have no idea. I mean, I was running a lot outside. I was spending a lot of time outside more than usual, but I never saw like a big bullseye rash. I didn't have any of the classic symptoms. The test came back negative because the test is only 50% accurate. So there's a lot of false negatives, and it was really challenging. It was really dark. I had met my girlfriend, my now wife, but girlfriend at the time, like right before all that. That was very challenging too.
Yeah.
And she was an amazing support system, and I had a lot of really special people that really helped me through that experience.
Wow. I'm glad it all kind of, has worked out for you,
That's right.
so far or whatever. I'm not sure how the disease works. Do you ever get rid of it, or does it just kind of
No, the way
dormant?
the way I describe it is that I've been in remission for about 4 or 5 years now.
Okay. Wow.
But I'm not an organ donor anymore. I have, my immune system is terrible. Like, with all the stuff that's happening now, like, I'm the most
susceptible to
and just the most cautious. We basically, like, we've been very, very strict about wearing masks and not being around people, and just because
I'm not worth it.
Yeah, I'm just a higher risk than a lot of people now.
Right, for sure. Wow. Just a random question.
Sure.
I was watching something on there's a show on Netflix that kind of dives into, like, it's called Unwell. Have you seen the show?
I haven't seen it.
There's a thing on Lyme disease and bee sting.
Bee venom therapy. Yeah.
Is that a thing that you've heard of? I've never heard of it until I saw that show.
Oh yeah. The thing about a community like the Lyme community, because doctors are like so far behind, most of them, we really have to basically save each other. And so every new treatment, everyone knows about it. Yeah, I mean, I'm allergic to bees, so that was an option for me. But I know a bunch of people that have tried bee venom therapy, and for some people it's been really, I mean, I think it sounds crazy, right? It sounds crazy. But when you're that sick, and I know it because I've been there, when you're that sick, like, I used to go into the doctor's office, and I would be like, if lighting me on fire would work, I give you permission, like whatever you need to do, you know, like that's how bad it was. And so for people like, yeah, sting me with bees, sure,
right, yeah,
sure.
I'll hurt for like maybe a couple hours, and hopefully that'll cure it or whatever. Yeah, I mean,
so yeah, I know, and I know people that have done crazy stuff to try and get better, and sometimes it's worked, and sometimes it hasn't. But yeah, I mean that. I know a bunch of people that have seen the bee venom therapy episode of that show. I have not seen it.
Oh, I saw it. That's what just made me think of it. I was like, I wonder if you, since you're so, involved, I didn't know if that was something you
But I got it before it was cool, because now like Justin Bieber just came out saying he has it, Shania Twain has it, like there's all these famous people now, so
they all found out you had it.
I was Avril Lavigne is very involved now. I was just ahead of the curve, you know.
Oh, that's funny. So okay, so that all happens, and then when are you able to get back into writing music and playing?
So there would be one of the difficult things about it was I had brain fog really badly, which is basically feels like there's a cloud in your head and you can't put sentences together. So I didn't write anything for like 2 years.
Wow.
Which because so much of my identity was like singer-songwriter. I love being a songwriter. It's like who I am. It's my job. It's my life. And then all of a sudden, like, that's just like gone. And then it was like, well, who am I? And what if like this disease like ate the part of my brain that's creative? What if I never write a good song again? What, like just like spiraling.
I was going to ask you though, that was what I was going to ask you about when you said the brain. I wondered if that was kind of a concern.
It was a big time concern among a lot of other things. It was like, when this is over, well, first of all, disappearing off the face of the earth for 2.5 years is not a great career move, right? Like sure. I was doing pretty well in 2013 when I got sick, and then just like everything just like stopped, and so that there's been a lot that has come along with that's been very challenging emotionally and mentally. But yeah, I mean, when being creative is your job and your brain doesn't work and your memory doesn't work, I forgot like I forgot how to play all my songs. I forgot my lyrics.
I would like relearn it.
Yeah, I would walk around the neighborhood and forget where I was going. Like it was just a mess. It was really bad. And so when I finally found a treatment that worked and I finally got better, like picking up the guitar again was like kind of scary. And the first couple creative things I did were writing sessions with like really close friends that I trusted. And then the first song I wrote by myself was a song called "This Is Why I Need You," which is the plaque.
Yeah, I was gonna say the song has a significant amount of plays on Spotify.
And that was really, I wrote it, and I remember thinking like, I'm like such an idiot, but one of my first thoughts was like, all right, I still got it. You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah. But it was really like, it was a song, for me, it was about acknowledging all these people that helped me get through that experience. I just poured so much pain and upset and relief into this song, And so for me, it was like, this is going to be the first single. This is the best song. I mean, in some ways, to me, it's still the most special because of how meaningful it was, And so for me, it was like, this is the first song. I'm going to put this out. I put it out like right at the end of 2015. I put it out actually in the week between Christmas and New Year's, which is so dumb, so stupid. And, but I didn't care. I just like, I needed to have the song out. And then, in my head, it's like, all right, I've been sick. I'm going to put this song out. It's going to blow up. I'm going to get huge. Things are going to get crazy. And then I put the song out and it was like, bam, hello, And so then it's really part of the reason why the song's been so special is it's really been a slow build over years of getting added to a wedding playlist, or people using it as a wedding, or on a YouTube thing, or a bunch of blog stuff. And then all of a sudden it would be on a bigger playlist. And then all of a sudden it was getting radio play in Singapore and the Philippines. And then like just all kinds of crazy stuff started happening. But it wasn't like I woke up one morning and all of a sudden the song had 10 million streams.
Sure.
It's actually 40 if you include everything else, but you know, 10 is, no, but who's counting? But it was like, I am.
Right.
But it was
I would be too.
It was a thing where, like on Spotify, you can see on the app, like you can see how many plays a song has, and you can see how many people have listened to it. So like a pretty decent ratio is like 2 to 1 or 3 to 1. If you have like 3 times as many plays as listeners, that's pretty good. A song like This Is Why I Need You is like 9 to 1. So it's been about 10 million streams and about 1 million people. So it's just people listening to it over and over and over again, which makes me so
you're talking about
happy.
Like unique listeners, so to speak. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So like on Spotify, 1 million people have heard that song, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But what's crazier to me is that on average, each one of those people has listened to it 10 times.
Yeah, so that's
people
incredible.
People just have really latched onto that song. And like I've gotten to play it at weddings and big ceremonies and special events, and it's been really special to see people take a song that I wrote for one thing and incorporate it into their own lives in the way that they see fit. So whether that's like a 50th anniversary or, you know, like getting a tattoo of You Are the Who, Loves the What, This Is the Why, whatever, you know, like getting to playing music for a living, you lose like certain stability points, and I've never had a 401k, and I don't, you know, I have health insurance through my wife's job, luckily, but like I get to be a part of like the most special moments of people's lives. And to me, like that is the best thing, you know?
That's cool. That song, I mean, yeah, it took so many different meanings. Like you said, people played it at a wedding.
Yeah,
different celebrations, which is interesting to me because you have the song that you just put out was a song that you had written for your wife, right?
Yeah.
And you played it for a way, like at the rehearsal dinner or something? Tell me the story about the new song.
Yeah, so I wrote that song. We got married in October, almost exactly 2 years ago. But and it's so cliche, right? Like a songwriter writing a song for his wife, like so cliche. But I don't care. I'm gonna do it anyway.
Right. She'd probably be pissed at you if you didn't do it.
Exactly. So I wrote the song, and then I was like, okay, I don't know if it's good, so I need to start playing it for people. So it was probably like 5 or 6 months before the wedding. So I played it at every show, and at every show I would make everyone in the audience put their phones away, and I would make sure no one was secretly recording, and I would ask them not to post about it, and nobody ever did. Like in a world where the internet exists and everything gets filmed and everything gets ruined, nobody did, because they were so excited and they felt so special that they were hearing it before her, and like it was so I had this like secret that I was just like carrying around, and then I didn't want to play it at the wedding because it's a day that's supposed to be about both of us.
Right.
And, you know, for me to be like, well, let me just make it about me for a second. You know, I just didn't want to do that. So
and it would probably be even more. I know at our wedding, it's like you don't even know what's going on. It's just like, so many things are happening. Like I couldn't imagine trying to like wait.
And everything's so fast and all this stuff. So I decided that a good compromise would be I played at the rehearsal dinner, much more intimate, just our closest family and friends. But that backfired hilariously because we had dinner, and then we had 2 or 3 people give speeches, and then we carved out like a bunch of time so that anyone could say whatever they wanted, right? And it was going to be like this very chill, open-ended whatever. But I got so nervous as soon as I had the opportunity. I was like, wait, I have to do something. And so I get up with the guitar and I play the song, and it's so special, and she's crying and I'm crying and everyone's crying. But then when I was done and I sat and everyone's claps and I sat back down, and then nobody wanted to go after me. So that just ended the rehearsal dinner. That was it. And then we just like, everyone just like looked around and we were like, all right, I guess we'll go.
Can't follow that.
Exactly. So, and then it was my wife. Her name's Jen. I don't know why I keep calling her my wife, but it was Jen's idea. Because we couldn't make a video, I was wanted to do an animation or do like a half animation, half live video, or like follow a bunch of different couples around, hire a studio. And, you know, in March, April, that just kind of went out the window. And it was Jen's idea. She was like, well, the best footage we have is from our wedding. Why don't we just use that? And then the really great idea which I don't know if you've seen the video yet, but it opens with our proposal because I had two of our friends hiding behind cars and filming on their iPhones.
Oh, wow. I didn't see the video yet. I've seen clips on your Instagram.
Yeah. And then I had a voice memo in my pocket, so we got the audio, and then they put it all together. So that's the beginning of the video. And I've had a bunch of people have asked, like, were you acting, or was that your actual? And it's like, I am not this good of an actor. Jen is, because she's an actress, but I could never have pulled this off. So that is 100% our actual proposal. And then what you don't see is right after it cuts, right after I got down on one knee and she said yes, and I put the ring on, and we had this big hug and moment, and then I got a nosebleed right there on the corner of the street. but we didn't put that in the video.
Didn't add the nosebleed part. Well, I'm curious actually. So you're playing the song before, and telling people not to film it and not record it. Like, your wife didn't go to any of those shows?
So
only the shows
played? Yeah, only like all the New York, Philly shows, I didn't play it. And then when I was out of town, or if there was one she couldn't go to, yeah.
Okay, I was wondering.
And I would make sure.
Come.
Well, and I would make sure that she wasn't like surprising me or something, because sometimes she would do that. So I really was like, I would make like, oh, you're home, you're okay, I'm gonna go on stage, and I would 100%. Because that would have sucked.
Yeah. Yeah. It would have. She would have probably got it. She would have, I'm sure, thought it was really rad that you were even setting that whole thing up, but definitely wouldn't have landed like it did.
but it was just great because there were just all these people that knew about it and had heard it, some of them multiple times, and were so excited for me. And fans were writing to me before the wedding, like, she's gonna be so excited, it's gonna be so great. And yeah, it was very cool.
That's amazing.
So then that when we just were trying to figure out what song to release first, Future was like just such an obvious choice, especially because there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world right now. In some ways, it feels weird to be like, I know all these horrible things are happening, but everyone take a look at me though. Like that, it's challenging. But the response that I got was like, people need something positive to focus on. They need something lovely and warm and easy, and just to like take a break from all that kind of stuff. And so the response has been really, really special. And the feedback that we've gotten has been really special. And people have been sharing it with loved ones or people they haven't talked to in a long time. Or again, it's just like, and by the way, it's been a long time since I've released something, and it's always so nerve-wracking, because you don't know if anything's good until you don't know what people are going to think until you put it out,
Sure. Yeah.
And it's been a little while. And so I've just been so thrilled with the response. And American Songwriter wrote about it at the premiere, which was very nice of them, because I love American Songwriter. And
this podcast will be on American Songwriter.
I know. I love that. Thank you, American Songwriter. I'm American. And a songwriter. Fits perfectly. And sometimes I feel like I'm like, we're not just in Nashville and LA. Like, there are New York songwriters, I'm here. But yeah, it's been really special to putting a song out is like hosting a party. Like, you hear from everyone. I heard from people from high school I haven't talked to in a decade, and all that kind of stuff.
That's cool.
And it's been really fun and exciting, and also strange, because the backdrop of it is like, the president is a nightmare, so like, what? I'm sorry, I don't know. Are there Republicans that listen to this? I can't tell.
I don't know.
So yeah, it's just been a like really stressful time for a lot of non-career reasons, and so to be doing this, it's good for me to have a distraction and something to focus on, and I've been thrilled with it.
That's cool. And this is gonna be part of a record.
Yeah, so
an album?
Yeah, it's a full-length record. I made it down in Austin. I've done some touring with a band called The Wind and the Wave, this awesome duo out of Austin. And one of the people in that band is named Dwight Baker, and he is a badass producer. He has this incredible studio space outside of Austin. And last year I went down for a couple weeks, and we were going to try and do like 6 or 7 songs, and we ended up doing 10. And yeah, but I haven't put out a full length since 2010, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So, because I did the 2 acoustic EPs, then I disappeared. Then I put out an EP like 18 months ago called Hope. which had some of the other singles on it.
The big song on it.
The big hits, baby. And so this will be my first full length in a decade.
Wow.
Crazy. I know. I still don't. I'm still narrowing down the titles and trying to get the artwork done. And
okay, yeah. So that it's still a work in progress.
It's
very cool. And then, are you still doing the Friday night Zooms?
Yeah, we're gonna be doing one here in a couple hours.
I was gonna say it's Friday. Are you doing one tonight?
Yeah, I got a couple hours though, but yeah. So my wife and I we set everything up. We actually just got like all new living room furniture, so we're trying to like figure out the best way. Because in New York, you have to like move things around if you want to record stuff.
Right.
So like what you're seeing on the screen now looks great, and then the rest of this room is just a nightmare.
Disaster.
Just stuff on the floor everywhere. But every Friday at 9, and that's been honestly like. That's been like one of the only things keeping me sane is just getting that little bit of interaction and playing for people. And we were doing a bunch of themes, and then we sort of went away from that. And now the new thing I've been doing, which has been really fun, which I've wanted to do for years, is for the last 10 minutes, I just have people write like silly or weird topics into the comments, and then I make up a song on the spot.
Oh, that's funny.
From that. And it's always about like trying to do words and phrases that are really hard to rhyme. And it's like some of them have been really bad, and then some of them I'm like, this is pretty good.
This might make the record.
100%. There's like 2 or 3 where I'm like, I need to record that and like make sure, because and it just gives me a chance to like there's a little bit of just like, I don't need to be so precious with my ideas. I don't need to be so precious about looking good. It's like exciting and fun for people. They look forward to it now. I look forward to it. I never know what's going to happen. And I love that kind of stuff because that's what like performing is, you know?
Right. What's the theme for tonight?
We don't have a theme. Now it's mostly just requests and answering questions and probably like making fun of all the crazy stuff happening in the world.
What was your favorite theme?
Oh, I did, some of the colors were really good. Like just trying to get like blue in every single one was pretty great. Cities, modes of transportation, locations, animals was one. God, there were so many. I mostly just would end up playing as many Beatles songs as possible. So like,
I watched I think it was the debut album or the self-titled album one. You did like Violent Femmes. And
everyone's First Records,
yeah. That was a good one. I like that.
Thank you. Yeah. It's been fun to do like Beatles stuff, but then also just like pop music like that I would never cover. But like for one of them, I think I covered like Cool for the Summer by Demi Lovato because I love that song, and I would never play that song under normal circumstances, but it's a jam, you know? Why not?
Right, exactly.
So yeah, it's been fun just trying to be creative and keep it fresh and not just play the same songs over and over and over. Although I've done that the last couple of weeks because it's cheaper than therapy and it works.
Yeah, there you go. Right on, man. Well, thank you so much, Jesse, for talking with me today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. You did your homework. I really appreciate it. I feel like I talked your face off for an hour, so I appreciate you listening.
No one cares what I have to say.
Oh, that's not true. That is not true one bit.
They'll come here for me. I have one more question for you, though. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Oh, man. How much time do we have?
I got all day.
I think one thing that somebody said to me once that I never forgot was because I'm a big lyrics guy. Like words really matter to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, how do I know like if my lyrics are going to be good, and how do I make sure that happens? And this dude just was like, when you want to write about a thing, just say the thing. Don't make it songwritery or poetic or deep or clever. Just say the thing. And for me, that has always been like in the back of my head all the time, because I never want people to listen to my song and be like, this is nice, but I wonder what he's saying. So like when for the new single, as soon as we met, I knew you were my future.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Clean and clear. There's no giant metaphor. There's nothing. as soon as we met, I knew you were my future, period, right? For This Is Why I Need You, I have so many questions and places to go. There's too many options, far too many unknowns. This is why I need you, right? Like I'm literally just stating facts, kind of.
Right.
And to me, I think that is really effective. I think it's really important to push yourself creatively, whether that's writing in a new time signature, writing from a different perspective or point of view, writing as a character. I think all that stuff can be really important. And then the number one thing is being good at music and practicing and being proficient on your instrument and your voice are very, very important. And stage performance is a craft that is entirely separate from those things that I think most people do not focus on as much as they should. And so especially if you're young, obviously right now you can't, but being on stage as much as you can and just getting that time and getting comfortable and being yourself and having a personality and not staring at the ground and yeah, I think I want people to know that I'm having a good time on stage so that they have a good time. And I think that's really important. I mean, there's a million of them, but I could, yeah. Bring it back.